the ballroom where we sway, everyone has a role to play. Gotta know the rules, my friend, from the start till the end. Trumpets blare and drums will beat. Find the rhythm with your feet. Stay in time, don't miss a cue. Honor the dance we do. Oh, the rules you see. Keep the tempo, don't you flee. Step in line and join the fun. Follow the rules, everyone. Hear the clarinet sweet song. You'll be dancing all night long. Breaking rules, it'll leave a mark. Better heed them from the start.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Unglued Brit. I'm your host Jimmy. Today we are going to be talking about freedom and what freedom is, because I think that it's a rather important concept. So, where am I going to begin with this one today? How could you possibly feel free over here? Well, it's quite simple, really. Firstly, it depends on your concept of freedom, you see. Of course, based on the definition of freedom, if we have a look at the definition of freedom, so if I just pull that up a moment, of freedom. So, of course, the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants. So, of course, do I have the right to act how I want? Within reason. But generally here, yes, of course. Do I have the right to speak? Yeah, speaking now. Do I have the right to think? Yeah, I can think whatever I want. And, of course, it says here, here's an example, we do have some freedom of choice. So, of course, based on that definition of freedom, what can we derive from that? Basically, what I derive from it is that it's not a matter of there being more freedom or less freedom in one place or another. It's just a matter of just having different rules, different rights, and you either like the rules of the society or you don't. So, for example, there are certainly a lot of things that I disagree with that are happening in my own country, though I love my own country, do not get me wrong. So what I mean by that is that it's not quite freedom that one tends to be looking for, it's different rules. Everywhere on planet Earth has rules, and you either like the rules or you don't. It's as simple as that, really. I mean, if you don't like the rules in one place and you like the rules in another, then you're going to feel like you have more freedom in the other place, for instance. Now, there are certain things you cannot say or do in Russia. That's a fact. It's an absolute fact. There are certain things you cannot say or do in China. That's a fact. There are just simple things you just cannot say and do. There are certain things you can't do in Saudi Arabia. There are certain things you can't do in the UK. Now, of course, being from the UK, there are many things I could certainly say. Now, of course, you know, there's always this concept of there's more freedom in Western countries than there is in Russia. Well, I think that is quite subjective. Let me explain why. For example, you could be anywhere on the planet and have a feeling of less freedom, or literally less freedom, because of how, say, you look after yourself. So let's take health, for instance. Now, if someone's got loads and loads of health conditions, self-imposed or not, they continuously have to go to a doctor, they continuously have to take pharmaceuticals, they continuously have to be in a state of entrapment to the pharmacy and the pharmaceutical industry as a result of that. Are they free, regardless of where they are? For instance, in many countries around the world, it's completely illegal to buy drugs. Okay, that's all good and well, in my opinion. This being one of them. But what about the countries where it is legal and where they have addicts? Illegal or legal? Is the addict free? Is the addict free? That's the question. If he has to constantly spend his money on a certain product continuously to feed his addiction, that he's going to just leave him broke, destitute, probably on the street, is he free? I wouldn't say so. So, for instance, if you're in the UK, then unless you're saying anything that is inherently against what the government wants, or against the protected class, then of course you will feel like you have freedom. But try talking about the things that, of course, would bother the establishment. Okay? So, the concept of freedom really depends on where you are. The real question isn't, do you have more freedom in one place? It's a matter of which freedom do you prefer. Okay? So, for instance, now, why would I feel free in Russia? Okay, let me explain that. Okay. Firstly, have I ever been to a protest in my life? The answer, quite simply, is no. Have I always been a law-abiding citizen? Yeah. Have I ever wanted to break any laws or rules? Not really. So then the question then becomes, do I like the rules or not in one place, or do I like the rules or not in another? So, for instance, right, there are certain people that say, well, you can't protest where you are, but at the same time, I've never protested in my life, nor have I ever wanted to. I've never seen that it amounts to much good or much change, for instance. So for me, the whole idea of even thinking about protesting is just silly. I think it's a waste of time, to be honest. It doesn't really do anything, so I don't bother with it. There is a popular phrase, actually. Freedom has to be fought for. And I don't think people apply it to their lives in the correct way. For example, it's not just sociological, it's mental freedom. You have to do a lot to free yourself mentally. You have to do a lot to free yourself spiritually. You have to do a lot to free yourself economically. And if you cannot do that, then it doesn't matter where you are on planet Earth, I'm afraid. Regardless of where you are on planet Earth, it's not going to make a difference if you haven't got it sorted in there in the first place. Coming back to this point, there are rules, there are things you can say and things you cannot say everywhere. So, okay, for instance, imagine if you were a man who had a job, hated his job, and was doing it for the money. Okay? So you hate your job, but you're doing it for the cash. Okay? However, there are things in this job that you don't like to do at all. There are things that you just hate doing that are against your moral background, moral fortitude, and you do not believe in. How free are you? How free are you? Ask yourself the question. Because I love my job. Absolutely love it. It's always an interesting question. How free are you in there to think the way that you want to think? Or is it a society around you that's causing you to think that way? Or a social setting? Or even employment? Are there certain things that you can say or do or speak about that would get you fired in your job, but you know are morally right, but you don't say them to keep that job? When we're talking about freedoms, which freedoms do you prefer? And plus, do we even have freedom as it's quoted? I think we just have rules. We have rules that we either agree with or disagree with. Yep. So we've got to start there. Which freedoms do you prefer? You see, the kind of freedoms that I enjoy here, someone else might not enjoy here. So you've got to always respect that humanity is completely different. Okay, so for instance, some people might go over to, say, a Western nation and really enjoy the freedoms there and not want to tip the boat. Whereas it's the same thing with people coming here. There are good reasons why Westerners come here every single day, an increasing amount, in fact, when you look around on the internet. Now, of course, when we are talking about freedom, we've then got to start breaking down which freedoms do you prefer. Say, for example, if you live in a crime-ridden area where everyone's getting stabbed, shot, murdered, killed, and there's no form of justice that will truly be awarded to these people. Do you think that the victims are free if they're living in fear and they're constantly hiding in their houses and they can't walk around at night without looking over their shoulder, always thinking, is that guy going to mug me? Can I trust this man? Can I trust that man? If someone's constantly living in fear in here, and they constantly have this constant fear drilled into them, how free are they in the mind, mentally, spiritually? I would argue not so much. You see, that's where the name Unglued Brit comes from. Because, again, I consider myself unglued. Because I can just pick myself up and just move somewhere else. Especially philosophically. I never stay glued to one way of thinking for too long. If there's a better way, I think better. It's as simple as that. Until a better way after that comes along. And that causes me to continuously develop and continuously learn to be mentally unglued, because I've met a lot of people that are very rigid and very in a box and have to be stuck in that box and think that way, and that's the way that it will always be for them. However, I'm open to great ideas. As soon as they come along, I think about them and I add them to my repertoire if they are great, and then discard the ones that may have been wrong in the past. And again, that's the removal of ego and the ability to say at any point I can unglue if I find myself glued down, and change my core beliefs if there are more fitting ones according to my moral compass. So, for instance, if you agree with all of the policies and agendas that the British government proposes, such as teaching LGBT and transgenderism in school, and if your child was to come home and decide, you know what, despite me being a girl, I'm now a boy, there is a chance that you could have your child confiscated by social services if you disagree. Would you feel free then? I wouldn't feel very free, to be honest. As a parent, I wouldn't want that to happen to my child. But there you go. You're always fighting for some form of freedom, regardless of where you are, but I don't think you'll find it on the outside. I think you'll find it on the inside, actually. That's where I found mine. And really, it's a question of who's pulling the strings of your life. Because someone is, no matter what you do or where you are. You're always accountable to somebody. And there's always going to be a trade-off for every take, regardless of whether you like it or not. Now, you can change that. You may change job. You may do something that you love and you believe in. You may decide to become incredibly healthy. You may decide to do a number of things. But regardless of whether you like it or not, in life, there's always going to be a trade-off with something. There are some things you can do and can't do in certain places in the world. There are certain things you can't do in China, can't do in Russia, can't do in Saudi Arabia. Good luck blaspheming against God in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, you can't do it. Okay? So if you live in that society and you don't want to blaspheme God in public, then you're going to feel free, aren't you? It's as simple as that. Whereas if you're in the United Kingdom and, of course, you don't want to say anything bad about any of the protected groups, because it's a tiered society, there are protected groups of people, and people that are unprotected. Now, if the unprotected people, the majority of the population, mind you, say something about the protected people, then they will find themselves with a criminal record. But someone might move there and never say anything, and never say anything like that. So therefore, they will feel freer than someone that wants to say something or be critical, you see. So everywhere has different rules. You either like the rules or you don't. It's as simple as that, really. This goes into a slightly deeper point too. Again, is your spirit free? Is your soul free? Okay. Now, for me as a Christian, for as long as I don't sell my soul, I feel quite free. I feel free, no matter where I am. Because you can take my head before you take my soul. It's as simple as that. I will die knowing that I kept my soul intact and I didn't sell it to Satan himself. A very long time ago in my life now, I once worked in offices. I worked all around the place, but I was always stuck to a desk. And I could never stand that, to be honest. So, of course, I was always glued to a desk. And imagine the situation that I was in. I couldn't leave the country. I had to ask for holiday, ask for permission for a blooming holiday, okay? So I couldn't just pick my work up and then go. And I felt like that wasn't a freedom for me, okay? And I wanted that freedom. So I had to fight for it and do qualifications for it and get very, very good at my job in order to attain that freedom, just so I could go wherever I want to at any point that I wish. That's called fighting for personal freedom. And again, what's the trade-off? Well, for me, there isn't one, because I was quite happy with that decision. However, people sometimes like to be chained to desks. You know, some people like to have that routine of going into the office and meeting all of their colleagues, complaining about Monday. I don't, they do. So, again, if you want it, you can have it. Up to you, though. But I always think that, again, we need to look from within, not outwards at the world. The world will keep worlding, whether we like it or not. However, it is up to ourselves to decide, what do we prefer? What do we want out of this life? And there's going to be trade-offs, and it's as simple as this. You've got to make a decision, make a plan, follow it, and work hard for it. And that's always going to be the case. There's no easy pickings. You don't just get things. You are there to work hard and take them if you want them. It's as simple as that. Or don't. That's your freedom. So, of course, for me, again, it's slightly deeper. As long as my soul's not sold and I speak my truth. And is my mind free? I feel like it is. Because at the end of the day, I can think whatever I want. I can say whatever I want. You know, everything within reason, of course. But at the same time, the cage isn't there. And I allow information to flow in. You know, especially from my commenters, who gave me plenty of different bits of advice and things to think about. And I always see myself as a student of life, and I'm quite happy to think of myself as such. So by just the sheer fact that I now live in a society that, of course, treats Christians with respect, treats other religions with respect, as opposed to my own nation, where, you know, you cannot even pray outside an abortion clinic. Now, I have no intention of praying outside an abortion clinic, but at the same time, goodness, I don't think Christians should be arrested or fined for praying outside of abortion centres, do you? I don't. So, of course, for me, I see that as, you know, as an attack against Christians in order to protect another group of people. So, it's one of those. Wherever you go in the world, it's just, it's not a matter of who has more freedom. It's a matter of whose rules do you like more. It's as simple as that, really.
Oh, the rules, you see. Keep the tempo, don't you flee. Step in line and join the fun. Follow the rules, everyone, everyone. Hear the clarinet's sweet song. You'll be dancing all